Welcome to the All the Hats We Wear podcast. My name is Scott Snow, and I'm your host. I am the founder and visionary of All the Hats We Wear, and it is a community of journalers. So you can check out my free PDF of my book on my website, allthehatswewear.com, so that you could get started creating your own audio journal. And I think once you start doing it, you'll have a journal that you'll treasure for a lifetime. I'd like to start off by talking about simplicity. And I often find at work and also playing the drums, I play a lot of drums for musicals, and I find that to be a lot of fun. I recently played Mamma Mia, and I'm going to be playing Spelling Bee pretty soon. I've played Newsies in Chicago and all the big classic, musicals. They're a lot of fun. So I always find that after about the second rehearsal that I start to simplify. I have my drum beats, and even if I start to leave out little things here and there, I just make it more compact, and all of a sudden it grooves even harder. So it's better for the whole band. It's better for the singers. And that's by taking things out. What can I leave out here? And the same thing goes for my groups at when I do music therapy. I do some lyric discussion groups, and I find that, I had this whole booklet listed of all rappers and hip hop artists and just pop artists that, gave a little bit about their background and their history. And then I had about 15 or 20 questions that AI helped me create for each song to discuss. And then as I started to do it, I said, you know what? Why don't I just pick one great question? And it really usually wasn't from AI at all. It was something that I know my people and I know what would get them talking and I know what would be positive for them. So that's what I started to do, just have a really simple question that makes a lot of sense that I knew would garner a lot of conversation and discussion. So that's another example of just taking away and making it more, making it better. My son is really into movies now. He must have caught the bug from me. And we were watching Knives Out Part 2 the other day. And there was a part where there was some female actress who was saying that she used to journal when she was little. And even like as a 6-year-old, she would label her journal notes for future biography. And I thought that was so awesome. I don't know what age this kid was, but to have that much confidence that what your life lived will be valuable and of interest to people, I thought was amazing. So we could all learn from that. For some reason, I've been watching The Omen. I do like horror, but I am afraid of The Omen. It freaks me out, man. That little kid Damien always gets under my skin. I remember watching Omen, and then I went in the hot tub, and I couldn't even close my eyes. I couldn't relax in the hot tub. It was at night. And usually I look up at the stars and, have a beer or something, listen to some Pink Floyd. And I couldn't do any of that. I couldn't relax. I kept picturing that damn Damien kid, like standing in front of me in the hot tub, like about to drop a toaster in or something. So anyway, it's the music, I think, that gets me. That devil stuff and the spiritual stuff really gets me. I watched Omen 2, and that one I thought was pretty good too. I didn't think the part 3 was very good, but part 2 was really good because the kid always had these coaches and caregivers sort of planted in his life throughout the way, like always looking out for him. He didn't know that he was, a devil, but they all looked out for him, and they always had animals looking out for them too. In the first one, it was a Rottweiler, and then the second one, it was crows. And actually, one morning after seeing that Omen 2, I opened the windows in the bathroom, and there was like 4 crows just staring at me. I got to give up this Omen movie. Another thing I liked about the movie was that it had the kid go through like kind of boarding school or like military school, and it sort of was mixing like this toxic masculinity energy with the scary devil stuff, and it really kind of went well. The football practices and all the guys are grunting and the kind of pigginess that was portrayed in the movie of the kids, of the guys, kind of a elite, obnoxious attitude. So I thought that really was an interesting pairing with the scary stuff. And then there was a really intense scene where he's in class and he's kind of just goofing off. And then the professor says, "Oh, Damien, you must know the date that so and so war happened." And he was like, 1822. And you're like, "Oh, well, how about the date for this?" And the professor just kept giving him different events. And as soon as he could ask them, Damien gave him the right answer. And it was frustrating the professor. And later on, one of Damien's coaches or caregivers, he was a teacher there at the military school, said, "You can't be, bringing attention to yourself like that. That was foolish what you did." And the kid was like, I didn't even know what I was saying. Like it was just coming out of my mouth before I could even think it. And that kind of reminds me of that deep well of inspiration where you already know the answer. And it's kind of like simplicity, when you know what to take away to make it groove even harder. So it's sort of like, what is that below the surface? And I touched upon something like that where I had an experience, like a flow experience, a few episodes ago when I talked about my brainstorming for a Joker movie screenplay, where I was like, I just had all these images in my head, like very clearly and very intensely, of this Joker mobile, with all the wheels and the carburetors spinning and like all the engines and like really, totally tricked out car. And then like that scene from above, like almost like a drone looking down at night on the highway, and the Joker mobile is just rolling down the highway. Like almost like overpasses that are all crisscrossed. So I really believe in that kind of tapping into that creative reservoir, but I haven't figured out how to do it consistently. So if you have any insights, please let me know. I think I'm getting better at it, which is exciting. And I think audio journaling is really helping because it gives you that practice, a lot of practice of looking inward. What happened during the day? What are the highlights? You kind of have to like sift through the day with kind of a fine-tooth comb and find those little kernels of interest. So it's kind of interesting stuff. I've been watching the UFC on Paramount Plus, and I really like that it's on Paramount now because, you don't have to do pay-per-view. And I've been a fan of UFC since the beginning. Like UFC 1 with the Brazilian guy, Royce Gracie, winning it all. He was like a 170-pound guy, and he was beating these, 400-pounders and just guys that were just monsters and stacks of muscles. And he was beating them all. So I always found that interesting of like this guy's kung fu and this guy's jujitsu and this guy's a wrestler and this is a striker and this is a boxer. And there's been so many martial artists that I really enjoyed over the years. Nate and Nick Diaz, the Diaz brothers are awesome. Don the Predator Fry, I always get a kick out of. I love the nicknames too. The Karate Hottie, Rose the Thug Namajunas, John Jones, Cain Velasquez, Brock Lesnar, Misha Cupcake Tate, Uncle Creepy, who was a guy with a curly mustache there. And that's a great title too. And I think if I were to have my own little nickname, I think it would be the Doughboy. That would probably be pretty intimidating for my opponents. And like the doughy figure when I take my shirt off in the ring. There was a recent match that was a lot on social media with Macy Barber, a female artist, martial artist who was really good. And she got knocked out right in the first round pretty intensely. And then she immediately got choked out. And I really like how the referee stopped it like immediately. He was right there because she was already knocked out before she was even in the choke. So it's very dangerous because she would not have tapped out or anything because she was already out. But then social media got really mean to her. Like they were just showing her picture of like she had like this scary kind of glazed over eye look, because she was totally knocked out. And it was not flattering and not good. And then people said that she pooped her pants. And I just started to think, like, who are these people that like, oh, what have you ever done? Like what? She stepped in the ring, with the most elite athletes. And, like, could you even, whatever, get up early to go to the gym 4 days in a row? So I don't like when they pick on fighters because they get a lot of balls. And I especially don't like when fighters have to apologize after the fight that they just won. Maybe it was a different type of fight, like a smarter fight or more like grappling or, you know, not like the just knockouts that the dopey audience wants to see. And I hate when they apologize and go, I wish it could have been more, entertaining for you. I'm like, the fans should understand the disciplines of the sport. I think Joe Rogan does a good job as an announcer and telling things because he is a martial artist himself. I also appreciate Dana White. Although I don't agree with his political opinions, I like that he just says whatever he feels. Like he's not looking in the corner of his eye at someone to tell him how he should answer a question. I like that. I respect that. And I think we need more of that. One thing you can do with journaling is what I call sensory journaling. And that's where you just use some kind of a sensory stim to help you get in the zone to do some journaling. One thing I do at work, probably to the chagrin of my office mates, but I slip off my shoes so I can just feel my socks on the rug. And it sort of resets me. Like it energizes me and it gets me. It really, that's all I can say is it resets me. I'll have a coffee or something nice, iced coffee, and put on some 80s tunes. And then I can recharge and do all of my notes from the day's groups. So, what types of sensory experiences could you use to get in the mode of being creative or journaling? Is it a hot tea, um, opening the window? Whatever it is that affects you, use it. Use it to your advantage. There might be some music. I have only some music that I can work creatively with. My number one, of course, is Pink Floyd. And actually, in my book, I dedicated, well, no, I didn't dedicate, I thanked Pink Floyd because pretty much every word in that book was written while I was listening to them. And when you've got the right music when you just put it on and then like it's already like half hour's gone by and you haven't thought about changing the music or, doing anything with the music. That's when you know. To be honest, I mean, I love Pink Floyd and they're really good. I do find that music that I don't feel is very good music is very good music for me to be creative with. Like U2, I'll put them on. I'm not saying that they're bad, but I'm just saying that they kind of become a wash, and that's really valuable. U2's like that Sting. I'll just put it on in the background and it just fades out. I really can't listen to classical music while I'm trying to write or create because my ear gets attracted to the sounds and like, the volume drops out of the classical music and then you have to it gets your attention, and there's themes and a lot of contrast. I just need something that you can just zone out. Another technique for journaling is called body horror journaling. And this I recently had a thing. I'm trying to lose some weight, and I realized that there was no hair growing like between my man boobs and my upper stomach. There was no hair growing there when I started to lose a couple of pounds, and that was pretty gross. And I journaled about it. So I'm sure we can all pick on things about our bodies to journal about, but it can be kind of creative and interesting when you write about it. Give it a try. All right. Well, I've talked about journaling a lot, and I did some AI research about journaling because I wanted to learn more about the differences between handwriting, typing, and speaking, which is the one, of course, this whole system is based on. I've done them all, of course, and I have found that the spoken journal is the best for me. The most creative. I have been consistent every single day for over 7 years. So that alone is a no-brainer for me. Like I've got to do the audio journal. But for handwriting, this research that I did confirm my suspicions that a lot of times you are going to be a little bit more negative. It's slower pace. You're writing by hand. You can't write that fast. There's more feeling, more emotion, more reflective. It could be more raw emotion, trauma processing, more honest self-reflection. Like an example with an expressive writing therapy, or a course where that's the whole idea is to explore those traumas in writing. Then that, of course, has that depth. Typing tends to be more structured, more edited. You know, you just think when you're on the laptop or the computer, you're going to erase stuff, you're going to back up. You know, you naturally do that. You can't do that if you're moving your pen. So it's more filtered, more perhaps problem solving, could be more lists, more planning. It's a mix of positive and negative emotions and thoughts. Spoken is usually less negative, um, emotionally regulated. It could be more narrative, of course, and like what happened today, and kind of more about making meaning out of today's events, which is what I really like. The tone, the pacing, and the breathing help you regulate your emotions. So you're going on a rant about something that happened, and you're using breath and tone and silence and all that to actually regulate your emotions. Also, you naturally reframe things while you're speaking. So it's not going to be the same as when you're typing or writing. You're putting things into kind of a logical context to communicate with someone else. Your voice can be self-soothing, and it might resemble how you would talk to a therapist or a friend. So it really kind of mimics that being comfortable to explore those ideas and share your experiences. I'm always curious to hear people's stories about why they became a sports fan. You know, someone will say, "Ah, really, there was a patient last week that said one of his number one goals, if he could have anything, would be to be the goalie for the Detroit Red Wings hockey team." So I love to hear that why, like why Detroit? We're in Massachusetts, you know, or people that love the Yankees versus the Red Sox or the Patriots, or someone likes the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you know, we playfully pick on him at work, you know. So I love to hear because there's a lot of values and you know, warm experiences that people share when they talk about how they became a fan of that team. You know, usually it's something from childhood. You know, their dad brought them to the game or their parents brought them to the game and they became a Mets fan, you know. It's cool. So about 10 years back, on a whim, I just decided I'm going to be a Boston Bruins hockey fan. So I got a jersey, I had a sweatshirt, I was, you know, wearing it, a t-shirt. I felt good. The thing that stuck with me is that the feelings that I had when I was a quote Bruins fan now. I felt like kind of strong, kind of you know, tough, aggressive, masculine, bold, maybe connected. When you see everybody in the audience, you know, part of a community for sure. But I did find that after a while of watching the games, because I was have took on that identity of I'm a big Bruins fan now. Had to watch all the games. I started to get bored because I'm not really a hockey fan. I found that, you know, there wasn't enough scoring. I liked, you know, when they roughed it up and stuff like that, but I was just kind of bored with, you know, watching the puck just kind of go up and you're like, oh, I think there might be a score, and then it goes back, you know, and it's just constant that. So that's what I couldn't get into. It's same with soccer. I can't get into that. I like, or baseball. I like basketball because it moves and, you know, there's some scoring and a lot of points. I mean, my favorite sport to watch for sure is the UFC, but it is fun to see the identity. And you always see it like at family reunions. You know, the college kids are very strong with identity. You've got the sweatshirt of, you know, the college you're at. And the high school kids immediately are wearing those, or your favorite sports team, or, you know, whatever it is. That's your advertising your identity for sure, your roles. And I love that. There's a section in my book about project management and managing large projects, creative projects. So when I read in the news about these military operations that have their titles, it cracks me up because they're so, I find them to be very cheesy and kind of laughable. And I wonder who the hell writes these? Like, why would they even accept that that should be the name? Like, they're so over the top, you know, macho, wicked macho. Like, here are some examples. Operation Epic Fury, which is going on right now. Operation Midnight Hammer, Operation Overlord, Operation Rolling Thunder, Operation Neptune Spear, Operation Anaconda, Operation Thunderbolt, Operation Phantom Fury, Operation Praying Mantis, Operation Desert Shield, Iraqi Freedom, Operation Sea Lion, Operation Husky. I think if I were to I think if I were to name one of my projects, it would be Operation Bye Bye Man Boobs. Not as tough sounding though, but effective. What are the what are the what are the top projects that are on your plate right now? If you were to list 5 projects, what would they be? Tell me in the comments. I remember when they had the FBI Most Wanted deck of cards for Osama bin Laden. He was the ace of spades. So apparently there's a hierarchy of value with a deck of cards. I think it might vary between bridge and poker or whatever, but Osama bin Laden was the number one hit on the list of the most wanted, and he was the ace of spades. And then they went backwards through the aces of all the different suits. Those were the top 4 people. And they gave cards out to the army and the military, and they were playing cards because that's you're always playing cards, I guess, if you can. And you're getting to know all those key players that you want to be on the lookout for, the most wanted. So it said who they were and like their job, you know, head of the Air Force for their country. So, but I thought, I could make a nice self-development project out of that. Having the deck of cards, and then perhaps you could use it for the obstacles. What are the things that are in your way? What's the number one biggest obstacle that's in your way, preventing you from what you want? That's the ace of spades. And then you go backwards from there. And maybe you have another deck if that's a little too negative, because I did start to think, well, I don't want to have 52 obstacles that I'm, focused on. Maybe the next one is the outcomes you want. What are the 52 things you want to improve? And what is the order of that? Kind of fun. Someday I think I'll get back to my deck because I used to have I originally created a leadership deck. It was like about, 3 by 5 inch cards. And you would go through my whole book, but with the cards in the deck. So you were able to spread out the cards all over the table in front of you, kind of like a solitaire game. And it was just really helpful visually to be able to get it out of your head and get it in front of you. And then to use those role types or the roles to then put in goals underneath them or your vision under them. So you could really questions about each role. You could have all this lined up with the deck. Maybe someday I'll bring it back. I think I would like to. I think with daily audio journaling, you are on the track to getting breakthrough ideas because you're in the business of ideas. And I do think that I do believe strongly that I'm in the idea business with journaling and a journaling community. So a breakthrough idea that I had recently, well, 2 weeks ago, it was one of my podcast episodes, the weekly sermon approach to podcasting. And that's where I was like a pastor or a priest and just sort of taking inventory all week, jotting down some notes, and then on Sunday giving my sermon, which would be my podcast episode, like I'm doing now on Easter Sunday. So the idea that I had this week was I write this silly kind of fan fiction book, and it's nothing too serious. It's just more fun. But I had an idea because the original idea had Martha Stewart basically wanting to dominate the world. And then she had all these partners that she would pay one person, $1 billion if they helped her the most to reach global domination. Because I get a kick out of Martha Stewart and I have a crush on her. So, but then like there was a weird way that I couldn't really connect Martha Stewart with all these other threads that were going on. So my new idea is that let's say Martha Stewart is also a witch or like into the dark arts. And she's with her crystal ball and casting spells and and I watched the movie The Substance with Demi Moore and I really like that movie. So maybe like you have like an ugly side, like you're beautiful Martha by day, but at night, you're like the monstrous witch. And, like she is looking into her crystal ball and she's affecting all of these people. And so that made a pretty good way to connect things in a creative way. So that perhaps could be a breakthrough idea with my fiction. It's important if you feel like you're not getting your creative exercise, you're not, that's what I feel a lot of times. When I'm feeling frustrated or bored or restless, it's because my creativity is not able to roam about. And I really need that outlet, I found. That's one big learning I've found about myself. And now, whereas I don't do as much drumming or playing drums or playing music, really, I do for work, but it's very functional. It's very focused on the clients. It's also creative, but not, I can't dig as deeply into the experience of playing like I did when I was composing. And I could really just dive right in and stay there. So I invite you to use all the expressive arts, whatever you need to be able to have that journaling be your pressure valve. Open up that pressure. It could be writing fiction, composing music, poetry, dance, art, whatever it is that works for you. I kind of think, like, if I'm not using my creativity and really feeling like I'm being creative, it's like having a Bugatti car or a Lambo, like just in the garage all the time and you never let it out. So let this system of all the hats we wear when you're managing all the different roles you play and the projects you're doing and the vision statements you have and the goals that you have, use that as your release valve. I like to end each podcast episode with a little bit of a homework assignment for you. And today it is similar to last week. Last week I was about questions, asking quality questions for each of your roles. But now this is a different version. This is using AI for a little help to think about things you wouldn't come up with on your own, having that second brain. Here's an example of here is an example of how I searched AI for some of my key roles. For the role of visionary and founder of All the Hats We Wear journaling community, um, I got these suggestions. Clarify and communicate your vision weekly. Write or record a one-page Why This Matters message and share it on social. Test one growth idea each week. Example, a new journaling prompt series or live event, collaboration, or niche audience. And the third question, and the third one, have two meaningful conversations per week with potential members, partners, or community members to understand the needs and refine my offering. Good ideas. For my role of world-class problem solver, use structured thinking daily. Practice frameworks. What's the real problem? What are three possible solutions? What's the simplest next step? Reframe one challenge per day. Turn problems into opportunities. That's a great journaling exercise for your brand as well. Study high-level thinking for 10 to 15 minutes a day. Case studies, decision-making models, or post-mortems of successful people. I love that idea. And actually, it's reminding me right now that I'm fascinated with all things leadership. So that reminds me to nurture that again. For my role of journaling guru, the suggestions are to journal in three different modalities weekly. Example, written, voice, and typed. Create and test one new prompt or framework weekly. And now I'm thinking framework. What do they mean by framework in the journaling? So that's an interesting new take. Publicly share your insights 2 to 3 times a week with your journaling. Okay. For the role of support group facilitator, they suggest to reflect after each group for 5 to 10 minutes. And I do that at work a lot, reflecting or collaborating with my co-leader. And that's the perfect time to adjust and see what's working, what's not, what can be improved. For professional speaker role, develop one signature story per month. These are stories that make talks memorable and marketable. Great idea. keep an inventory of those signature stories, things that you can use in a speech. It's a great idea. For my role of music therapist, document one meaningful patient moment per day. And this builds clinical insight and future teaching material. This reminds me of my class, one of my classes at Anna Maria for going to school for music therapy, where we would have to do a report after each time we had a practicum music therapy session at a school, like a practice group. We had to list the most therapeutic, we had to list the most therapeutic moment of the session and the least therapeutic moment of the session, which those two are awesome questions. And then we had to make a little quick circle diagram having each member's, initials with a arrow. Are they going towards the group, the center of the group, or away? Or, is one arrow, you know, have a rough, do you have a rough wavy line going from one client to another that they didn't get along that day, or there was a lot of tension there? So you can see visually what happened. That's another great tip. Well, you got all that? I'm enjoying this time together here to be able to just blab away. And really, I'm approaching my podcast just like I would for my audio journal. And that really works for me. Once you find the modality that works for your journaling, try to approach it and use that wherever you can. I hope you check out my social media. I'm on TikTok. I do a lot of videos on TikTok. I enjoy TikTok. Instagram, I do some. I don't get as much feedback on Instagram, but I find that I watch more people on Instagram, interesting enough. And I'm starting to do more with my Facebook. So if you look for All the Hats We Wear on Facebook, I'd love to see you there. And I'm starting to post my podcast videos on YouTube now. So you could check out All the Hats We Wear on YouTube. You could check out All the Hats We Wear on YouTube as well. So for your homework, list out the different hats that you wear and then put it in AI. I use just the basic chat GPT and ask it, what's one thing you can do for each role to make some improvements on that role? And let me know how it went. Until next time, this is Scott Snow signing out.